Hello, welcome to the channel. My name's Matt. This is Bask in the Story, and today we're going to do my October wrap-up. So I managed to read 5 books in October. We had some fantasy, we had some sci-fi, we had some non-fiction, and we even squeezed in a Victober Read, which I will start with because did I choose the smallest, shortest Victober book I could find to read in October? Yes, I did. I did choose a short story. So I read Oscar Wilde's Canterville Ghost. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was good fun. It's nothing too serious, nothing too deep. It's a wonderful short story. It's got Wilde's wit and humour. So we've got an American family, a diplomat's family, moving into an old English house and being sold to them by an aristocrat, English aristocrat. We get the Wilde wit about the English aristocracy, as well as the American nobility, I suppose, in a sense, as well, coming in, and the different views, and we get this poor tired ghost trying to scare these Americans and failing. And it's funny, it's witty, it becomes more I suppose sentimental towards the end, but I enjoyed it. It's a short read. It's got Wilde's wit and humour that I thoroughly enjoyed from previous works I've read of his, and I'm really glad I picked it up. So if you're looking for something that is quick and easy, then I would recommend the Canterville Ghost. So that was Victober. Tick that one off. I've got bigger plans for next year and Victober about what the literature I want to try and read, and I want to continue my delve into classic literature next year, so I'm trying to figure out which ones I want to pick up, and I'm sure there'll be a video on that shortly. Next one, let's cover off. So I had one sci-fi. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time talking about this one because I've done a full video review, which should be up by now, and that was The Future by Naomi, Alderman. In summary, enjoyed the premise, generally enjoyed the story, didn't like the way the story was told, didn't like the structure, I had some structural issues that I did not enjoy and brought down my overall enjoyment of this book, unfortunately. So this was a bit of a meh read. So let's move on from this as swiftly as we can. If you want to know more, check out the video review. Next, we'll move on to fantasy. So I read a couple of chunky books for fantasy this month. The first one was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is the 5th one in the series. This is my first time reading Harry Potter. I enjoyed this. I think I'm enjoying them more and more. This and the last one are pretty equal, I would say. But I'm getting more and more from them. They're getting darker in their storytelling. I think the characters are developing more and more. Harry was, quite occasionally, his grumps and his anger got to me a little bit in the story. But then it's a long time since I was that age, and I do still remember some getting angry at stupid things. So that was fine. The storyline of the creation of the DA, Dumbledore's army, was entertaining, and certainly I think that's going a long way forward because I don't know much about the next 2 books. So that will be interesting to see how that develops. But the storyline I really enjoyed, and the way it's developing I really enjoy, is Neville Longbottom. And the more we learn about him, the more I feel for him, and the more he is growing in stature, which I thoroughly enjoy. I think he is fast growing on me as one of my favourite characters in this universe story, which I wouldn't have said at the beginning, certainly not, but he is certainly growing on me. His development is fascinating, and the growth and strength that he is starting to develop and show is quite brilliant. So yeah, so I enjoyed it. I've got 2 more to go. I'm trying to get 1 done before the end of the year and probably finish with the Deathly Hallows. Is that the last one? It's got Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows. So finish with Deathly Hallows probably early next year. And I'll finish my Harry Potter read. So I'm quite looking forward to that. But yeah, they are getting better and better. As I say, this one and the last one, probably my 2 favourites so far. But very, very good. Very different area of fantasy now. I read The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, the first in the Dandelion dynasty. What I loved about this is Ken Liu's ability to pack so much information into a page is quite remarkable. I think I need to read his short stories. I've heard great things about The Paper Menagerie, but you can really tell that he could he can really pack a lot of information, a lot of emotion into very short chapters. And this is an interesting fantasy novel because it's obviously Far Eastern inspired, and there's lots of historical context taken and brought into this story. There's lots of imagery, especially about the dandelion and the chrysanthemum, but it's told as almost like a plotted history of events that happened in this world. And it's almost like that kind of historical view telling of a story of specific events as we move through time, as we follow the two main characters, the dandelion and the chrysanthemum, rather than your normal fantasy narrative. But it works because Ken Liu is quite a fabulous writer. As I say, can fill you with so much information so quickly. There's a paragraph in here where he's describing how the current empire is, and he provides you with, the way it's changed, the way the world's changed, the way finances and currency and measuring of weighing of things has all changed, and you get this blast of information, and suddenly you can see the world that he's created, and it's magnificent in that sense. And I thoroughly enjoy the storyline. Yes, the character development I think could have been developed further, but I think the next three in the quadrilogy, the next three are more your typical sort of fantasy narrative style. I think therefore we'll probably get more character development. This was more about the events along with the characters involved in it, and we still get character development, but some of it happens really quickly because it is a lot of short events that happen. It still works, but I would like to spend more time developing, especially like developing the relationships that we get between characters as well, because I find they tend to happen very quickly. They work, but they happen very quickly. So I'm looking forward to reading the next one. I have no idea when I'm going to get to it. I have got it, but we shall see when I get to it. But yeah, this was a brilliant entry for me into Ken Liu. And as I say, I really need to pick up his short stories because I expect they are superb by the way he has written this. So that's all the fiction I've read in October. So we'll move on to non-fiction. I read one non-fiction book, which was Jeremy Paxman's Great Britain's Great War. And as the title says, this is about World War One, and specifically Great Britain's involvement in World War One. And yes, it does follow the history of World War One, but what it really seems to focus on is the mentality of the people involved. And we see World War One from our perspective very differently from the people who are involved in it see it, which I assume is like most wars. But World War One seems like a turning point because it seems to show a different era, a transition of eras. We get this perspective, like if you've watched like Blackadder or anything like that, we get this perspective of these upper class officers sat miles behind the front lines, just ordering people around with no real concept of what was going on. And then you've got the common soldier stuck in a trench, trying to go over the top and into a hail of bullets to try and make a few inches, and move the line forward by a couple of feet, and just the lives that were lost doing that. And that division between, the officers and the soldiers. And there is some of that, but what he's exploring is actually there's reasons why the officers were behind the lines, because communications was incredibly difficult, didn't really have radio or anything like that. So, you had to send runners backwards and forwards, and actually you can gather more information if you were further behind the lines, and on the line you could command larger groups of people. And it was that changing ethos. And then why did people volunteer for this? We see the war poetry that we get from that time, Owen, Sassoon and various others, and their view on the World War and the horrific events of it. And we see it through that lens. But huge numbers of people volunteered. There was a appetite, might be the wrong word, for it. And he tries to explore why that was, why that view, why people had that view at the time, why they wanted to be at the front and be involved in this war. And so it was really interesting that point of view. I would like to read more about World War One, I think. and to understand more, because it does seem like a sea change to more modern warfare. You've got like the invention of the tanks, aircraft, etc. So there's a lot more technology coming into warfare at that point. So it does seem like a sea change moment. So yeah, so it was an interesting read. I want to read more on the subject. I would like to read more about the history and the events that led up to it, and the events through it as well. But then that's the same with most things in history. I want to know more about them, so I'll have to pick and choose what I read. But hopefully Historathon will be happening again next year. I've certainly got plans of what I'd like to read next year for Historathon, so fingers crossed that it's continuing next year as well. And if it doesn't, I'll probably have to just do my own. But we'll come to that. So that's all the books I read this year. Book of the month? Book of the month, that's a good question. Maybe Grace of Kings? Book of the month, I'm going to give it to Grace of Kings. Yes, I'm going to give it to Grace of Kings for my book of the month for October. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And I hope you have a great reading month. Bye. About the English aristocracy. I will see you in the next video. Please do...